So fellas, in the first video of the day, it kind of feels like we have to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is a team that I've made, a good amount of videos about over the last year and a half to 2 years. But this one feels different. This one feels like, confirmation of this organization and of this team and of their plan and how weird and crazy of a season they've been having and how well set up they are for the future. Some of the stuff in the past has felt like hypotheticals, and a lot of stuff moving forward still about the Thunder still, kind of remains to be seen. But the season that they're having, despite the record being poor, it kind of illustrates everything that this team is doing right now. And I just feel like they need to be talked about. And that's what we're going to be doing in the first video of the day. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel. So it's a great place for consistent NBA content, the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. By the way, if you're new here, what's up? My name is Tucker. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well. And you can check me out at various socials in a Linktree link down in the description below. With those things said, let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. So there's a handful of guys we need to talk about here, as well as kind of, what's happening with the team overall. So we all kind of understood where the Thunder were coming into this year, right? They went from having Westbrook and Paul George. The Paul George thing goes down. They trade him. They move Westbrook. They get Chris Paul. And then they move Chris Paul again. And they're getting all these picks. They're getting all these assets. They're getting players. And then you go into this season and you realize, okay, it's SGA and a ton of young guys. And Al Horford's there. And everybody kind of knows this is a rebuilding year. They're just going to try and figure it out, develop guys, and get more assets. Well, what ended up happening, and it hasn't been the case recently, they've been losing a lot of games, but the Thunder are strangely competitive in a lot of these games. They win games they have no business winning, and it really illustrates how far teams have come, specifically this Thunder team, from when tanking first became like a huge thing. Because it's very clear at this point that the Thunder are trying to lose games. They sent Al Horford home. They just said, hey, you know what? We don't need you. Go sit at home. We're going to pay you not to play because we don't want to win games. We want to develop the young guys. We want to make sure that they're getting some run. And we're not really worried if we win or lose or not. And if you go back and you think about those Sam Hinkie, Philadelphia 76ers teams that kind of popularized tanking, they were kind of a disaster in contrast or in comparison to what's happening in Oklahoma City right now. Obviously, they were intentionally losing. They were trying to get good draft picks. They had some other teams' picks, but not nearly on the scale that Oklahoma City is right now. Granted, they had the benefit of trading away Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and then Chris Paul in order to do so and get those picks. But you look at this Oklahoma City team, and there isn't a feeling like they're hopeless. There isn't a feeling like, oh, we have no chance to win these games, or even if we lose every game the rest of the year, everything's awful. The sky is falling. Granted, they're very early on in the quote-unquote process, whereas, some of the issues in the process came later on. But in contrast to those Philly teams, there just appears to be a completely different level of competence within the organization and confidence in what they're doing moving forward. Nobody's worried about getting fired. Nobody's worried about their job potentially being in jeopardy. Everybody kind of is on the same page about what they're going to be doing here. And what they're going to be doing here is setting themselves up for one of the brightest futures in the entire league. And that involves some players that we're going to talk about now. Gilgeous-Alexander is the first guy, of course. I don't think you can say enough about this guy, because there has not been a situation that Gilgeous-Alexander has been put in to this point in his NBA career that he has not thrived in. As a rookie on a good Thunder team, he was kind of in and out. He was kind of there. Sometimes he wasn't. He was on ball. He was off ball. They didn't ask him to do too much, but when they asked him to do stuff, he was really productive. And for a coach in Doc Rivers that is notoriously difficult to win over as a rookie, he played a lot and he did a lot of things for that group. Then he goes to Oklahoma City, he shares the backcourt with Dennis Schroeder and Chris Paul, and has a really good season. And then he comes into this year and levels his game up another level, to the point where I don't know how you could doubt this guy at this point. Like, you could say, okay, I don't know if he's ever going to be like, a top 5 player or, one of the best players in the league or an all NBA guy. You can doubt that, I guess. But like, what has Gilgeous-Alexander shown you to this point in his career that would make you doubt that he could do whatever he wanted to? He's got great size, great versatility, really good two-way player. Worst case, he's Drew Holiday, right? And that's a fantastic place to start your rebuild. Now, do you want Shai to be the absolute best player in your team moving forward? No, probably not, but they're going to have plenty of opportunities to bring in guys that have potentially a higher ceiling, and he just fits so well in any scenario, and that is such a great building block. And I think one of the things that makes you feel the best about this group moving forward, because picks and assets are one thing, but you need to have at least one guy you feel really confident in, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is that guy for Oklahoma City. But he's not the only one. Lou Dort has also been having a really good year. I mean, this is a guy that went from like defensive specialist on Andre Roberson levels of don't even guard him in the corner to being a good 3-point shooter, being a productive guy. And again, a guy that you can see being good on a good team. You know, like again, it's in contrast to some of the tanking stuff we've seen in the past, where you just have guys out there that you don't know if they're ever actually going to be good. You don't know if stars can see themselves playing alongside those players. And I think we started to see teams like the Clippers and teams like the Nets, when they started to build their quote unquote super teams, they started to gear their roster more towards, hey, we might not have stars, but you guys can come be the stars. And then we've got guys around you that are going to fit really well and play around stars. Guys like Shea, guys like Lou Dort. And that's exactly what Oklahoma City is building here. Now, past that, you get to some of the really, really young guys here. Theo Maledon is a guy that has had some really, really good moments. He's only 19. I think he turns 20 in like June, which is kind of crazy and ridiculous. But he's a good little guard. And he, I think, more than anything else in this roster, kind of points to what makes them intriguing and interesting moving forward. And that is that if they can develop this guy as a young player into someone that's actually going to be productive, think about, not just some of the top level picks they're hopefully going to have over the next couple of years, but I mean, this guy's an early second round pick. Think about how many second round picks Oklahoma City has. If they're this good at finding and developing players, they're going to have a lot of assets on their hands. And just kind of, this illustrates the fact that they're going to be really good at this. And again, there's a level of competence within this organization that I think just simply hasn't existed in the past with some other tanking teams. And then, of course, we got to talk about Poku, right? Poku is way more of a meme right now than he's an actual real NBA player. There's some interesting aspects to his game, certainly. It does not lack for confidence. There's some shooting ability there, some size there. Obviously, he has some things holding him back at the NBA level, whether that be strength, whether that be just kind of awareness on the court. But there's some talent there. Maybe Poku ends up being something. I felt the need to mention him here, but who knows? He's just a funny guy. He has quickly become one of the biggest memes in the NBA, but still a young guy that is he's like 19 or something. Like, he's going to be one of the youngest. If he had been in this upcoming draft, he would be one of the youngest players in the draft. So like, he's still very, very, very young, and they're giving him plenty of opportunities to try and figure it out. And when you consider the fact that Oklahoma City has already a handful of young guys that I just went through that you kind of like, especially SGA and Dort, and then they've got nearly 40 picks between first and second round picks over the next however many years, this team, like, the future is almost uncapped for them. Like, there's almost no limit to how good they can potentially be moving forward, assuming that they make the correct decisions, right? I mean, considering the assets, considering the young players, considering their ability that's been made very clear already to develop players, and a coaching staff that has figured out a way to continue to help these guys get better. It would be despite the record being bad right now, it would be a very exciting time to be an Oklahoma City Thunder fan right now. Now, the one counter to that would be, you can talk about, okay, we've got young guys, we've got assets, stars might want to be here, they can kind of see themselves playing here. But if stars don't want to play there, having the assets to acquire a star doesn't really matter, right? Because think about the scenarios in which most stars are traded, because it would be a trade here. Nobody's going to go to, no all NBA caliber guy is going to go to Oklahoma City in free agency, right? Think about the context in which most of these guys get traded, these stars. It is, I've got a year left of my deal. I've got a player option next year. I'm going to leave, so trade me, right? In that scenario, are there really any stars in the league that are looking and say, you know what, I want to leave my current spot and I want to go to Oklahoma City. Send me there. I find that unlikely, given some of the situations that potentially Miami or New York or Golden State are going to be in position, in terms of where those teams are going to be over the next couple of seasons. Those are much more intriguing from a star perspective in terms of location, in terms of prestige, than going to play in Oklahoma City. Despite the fact that it might be a really, really good basketball situation, I think it's unlikely that overcomes a lack of desire to play for the Thunder and play for Oklahoma City. So that is the one thing that holds this group back. If this was the Knicks, this would be like a sky-high, ridiculous ceiling. And the only thing that holds the Thunder back here a little bit is I'm just not positive that just having the assets is going to be enough to make a trade for a guy. Now, you can always just say, screw it. We don't care if the guy says he's not going to resign here. We're going to go out and get him anyway. We're going to convince him to stay. You can always say that. They did it with Paul George, right? When they traded for him the first time, Paul George made it pretty clear that he wanted to go to LA, and the Thunder made the trade anyway, and it ended up working out for him, obviously. But it's not only, you know, are they going to want to play there, but also teams are going to know that the Thunder have a ton of assets to give up. They might have to pay a bit of a premium 4-star if they do ever make that move, but that's literally the only thing holding this group back. They've got the player development stuff down. They've got, you know, they've got all these assets. They've got the opportunity to trade for a star. They've got a coaching staff they believe in. They've got a front office that they believe in. And they've got young players that are already good and are already showing themselves to be solid NBA guys. And beyond that, like, it's just going to depend on if they make the correct moves in the front office, which to this point, I don't know why you wouldn't have confidence that they would. So this is such a fun Thunder team, and I just kind of felt like I needed to make a video about them in the first video of the day. But yeah, that is going to be the end of the first video of the day, and I thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. You can leave a like rating on the video as well, and you can check me out at various socials and the Linktree link down in the description below. With all those things said, I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your Saturday, and I will see you all next time.